Good morning guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel and welcome back to the Scouting for Manchester United series. The series where we look at different players and talk about how they would fit at Manchester United. And of course today we're talking about Mason Mount. News kind of breaking in the last 24 to 36 hours that Manchester United are Mason Mount's preferred destination if he is to move this summer. So I want to look at how he would fit into the team. Now normally what we would do is kind of go through and look at all of his different strengths and weaknesses as a player. And we will cover that a little bit, but what I want to do more so is talk about how he would fit directly into the team, because I think Mason Mount is a well-known player. He's a very established player. Everyone knows his strengths and weaknesses. So rather than focusing on kind of that side of his game, I want to literally look at his tactical fit. But before we do that, I just want to say you guys probably want to subscribe to the channel with notifications on, because tomorrow I will be going live talking about a tactical preview for Fulham, as well as the futures of Weghorst and Sabitzer. So if you subscribe with notifications on, you guys will get a notification when I go live, so you guys can help me out with that video and get your thoughts in the chat. However, to focus on today's video, Mason Mount, what would he bring to Manchester United? Well, at 24 years old, he would bring an actual experience already. 24, still very, very young, but he is very experienced at the top level. He's represented England at World Cups and European Championships, but also Chelsea, Champions League finals. He's been in, the top 4 on a regular basis. So he's a really experienced player. But what we can see importantly towards the bottom there is that his contract runs out in 1 year's time, which means he might be available. It doesn't look like he wants to extend his contract. I'm not sure why, and there's a lot of talks that he will be leaving. And like I said already, the report is that United is his preferred destination. And if he was to join, where would he play? Well, I think we would see him play as an advanced 8. We have done a lot of talk on the channel recently about United's need for a midfielder which wants to play this deeper position next to Casemiro. However, the more kind of transfer rumours that we keep seeing, it doesn't look like Ten Hag is going to go that way. It looks like Ten Hag wants an advanced 8. And it looks like what Ten Hag wants to do is recreate sort of his 21-22 Ajax side as opposed to his 2018-19 Ajax side. I will do another video kind of breaking down what that means more in depth, but this is a rough idea. This is where I think Mason Mount would be playing, and this is certainly a role that would suit him. He is kind of that modern 8, which is very creative but also very hard working, rather than perhaps 10 years ago we had those 10s which were a little bit lazy and the focus was on creativity. Mount is kind of that modern Kevin De Bruyne sort of role, Odegaard sort of role. That's the area which Mount wants to play. So this system would suit him well if he had the right players behind him. Now, like I said, we'll focus more on how that system behind him works in another video because it is quite interesting. To focus on kind of how Mason Mount fits this role, I think what he brings is a real technical ability. He is very good with the ball at his feet. He is not a player like Fred, McTominay, even Sabitzer at times, who the first touch lets them down. Mason Mount is a very fundamentally sound player. There's a reason he was rated by Thomas Tuchel, Graham Potter, Ten Hag, Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola. These are all managers which have kind of vocally admitted that they like Mason Mount as a player. So that straight away is a real credit. Now, if he was to play this role, he isn't the sort of player which wants to drop into these areas on a regular basis. He would do it occasionally, as any footballer would. There would be situations where he drops deeper. However, I think we would see him having quite a high starting position and operating in the holes, doing a very similar job to Bruno Fernandes on the other side of the pitch. Now, from this position, Mason Mount brings a real versatility. There would be spells in games where him and Fernandes could swap. There would even be spells where him and Antony could swap, because he is capable of playing pretty much any position in the attack. And that is something which he has actually benefited from at Chelsea. Chelsea have had a lot of different managers over the past few years, which means that Mason Mount has had a few different roles. So he is now very accustomed in set systems to move into different areas of the pitch. So even Marcus Rashford, that is another position he could swap with, kind of overlapping down the left-hand side, allowing Rashford to come inside with the ball. That is something which would work well. And I think that's actually something else which we need to touch on quickly. And it's something which I probably should have said in the intro. Mason Mount this season has not been very good, but no one at Chelsea has. I think when we're talking about Mount and trying to assess how good he is, it's important that we allow him an off year and look at his peak years, look at his prime football that he's played, because he is a very good player, and he's actually become quite underrated. I think there was a spell where he was overrated, but I think he is now dipping towards becoming underrated and underappreciated a bit. From this position, in this half space, in a proper system, which dominates possession and has the right rotations, like Erik ten Hag is very capable of putting in place, I think Mason Mount's game goes to the next level. Because, again, I think he's a lot better than what people give him credit for. I think he's a lot more creative than what people give him credit for, especially coming in from the left-hand side. When he plays on the right-hand side, his creativity comes from wider areas. On the left-hand side, he's more capable of moving inside, kind of shifting the ball onto his right foot, and then playing reverse balls into these areas, into the feet of a striker, or it could be a little clipped pass over the top for someone like Bruno Fernandes to run onto. That is something which could work really well. And like I said, generally, creatively, he is underrated. This is from 2 seasons ago now. But look who he's up there with. He's up there with Kevin De Bruyne, Bruno Fernandes, Jack Grealish. Players which are seen as some of the most creative outlets in the Premier League. Mason Mount is criminally underrated from a creative point of view. He is very, very good. This is a Chelsea team which has been a bit jumbled, but under Thomas Tuchel, when he was a main feature in the team, he created a lot of chances. And that was without really even the best attackers around him, whilst also playing in what isn't even his best position. I think he is becoming underrated. Something else I think we would see, if he was to join Manchester United, is an increase in goal output. And that's quite an exciting prospect, because he's scored a really good amount of goals anyway for Chelsea. We'll look at the numbers in a second, but I think we would see him scoring a lot. One of the reasons for this is because I think the plan for Manchester United moving forward is to become a team which really dominates the ball, has a lot of possession, is very secure on the ball, and yeah, creates a lot of chances. What Mason Mount is good at is moving in the box. He isn't the top level, if we're talking maybe, in the past, Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard. He doesn't quite have that aura about him and that inevitability about him. However, his movement off the ball is very, very good. He's very good at making movements off the blind side of a defender to make up the numbers in the box, something he does very, very well. And if we look at his numbers from last season, these are good goal scoring numbers. 13 goals in all competitions and also, as well, 16 assists. Mason Mount has become underrated. He's really a very good footballer. Really very, very good. And I think, again, from a tactical point of view, there is also something else which could work. We know that Erik ten Hag at this point wants a striker which drops a little bit deeper. We've seen Fabrizio Romano in the last 24 hours saying that Ten Hag views Harry Kane as the perfect striker for what he wants. What does Harry Kane do really well? He drops deeper, and that leaves space in behind. Space which someone like Mason Mount, but also Bruno Fernandes, could really exploit. So again, from a tactical point of view, this is something we could see. Harry Kane kind of dropping deeper, or whatever striker it may be, drawing the defender with him, opening up the space in behind, a space which Mason Mount is really good at attacking. Now, like I've said already, there's also the potential that we see something a little bit different, and Bruno Fernandes could play on the left-hand side, and Mount could play on the right-hand side. From here, his job would be a little bit different. I think we would see a greater focus on underlapping runs with Antony. Antony moving inside with the ball, Mason Mount running into this position. Mason Mount is also capable of overlapping down this side and putting in those crosses from a similar sort of area to where Jordan Henderson has liked to for Liverpool the past few seasons, and more so Kevin De Bruyne. Again, he isn't Kevin De Bruyne's level, but he's also better than Henderson. He's kind of in that middle ground somewhere in there. He would be very good from this position. And again, I just think tactically it does kind of work as long as the system behind him is right. But that system behind him, again, is going to take too long to talk about to focus on it in today's video. It's quite complex. But if the setup is right behind Mason Mount, I do see why Ten Hag would want him. It does make sense in my head. I think defensively he's also very, very good. We know that he covers a ridiculous amount of ground. We know that managers, again, like Tuchel, even Gareth Southgate, quite cautious managers at times, have really liked Mason Mount for his defensive work. He is definitely someone which could operate in a high press, but also in man-to-man systems he is going to cover a lot of ground, a lot of energy in his performances. He's someone who you could put in a man-marking system, kind of give him the job of sitting on a certain player. Mason Mount will give you that. That's why so many managers have loved him, because he really does work hard for the team. Now, before we kind of wrap up in this video, one thing I want to say is please, please, please get in the comments down below and let me know your thoughts on this signing. And I don't want you to completely go, he's been terrible this season, and for that reason, no, we shouldn't sign him. I think we are seeing, with this sort of rumour, Ten Hag trying to take the team in a slightly different kind of direction to what we were predicting. I think Mason Mount as an advanced 8 brings something different to what we were expecting. However, that doesn't mean it isn't right. Just because it's not the plan that I personally had in my head, it doesn't mean it's the wrong move for Manchester United to make. The talks of 50 to 80 million is far too much. You can't spend that on a player with 1 year left on his contract. So that has to be negotiated. That price has to come down. He simply isn't worth that with 1 year left on his contract. even in his prime with a good amount of time on his contract, he probably isn't worth that. However, I hope what we've seen today is why Ten Hag wants Mason Mount. Now, there are negatives to it all, of course. Mason Mount isn't a player which is particularly progressive. He isn't a player which can carry the ball forward. He doesn't massively pass between the lines from deeper areas and progress in that way. So there are negatives to having Mason Mount in the team. What I want to do today, though, was rather than talking about literally, this is his strength, he's good at doing this, he's good at doing this, I want to talk about more literally where he slots into the team, because I know there has been a lot of confusion. A lot of people are looking at it on Twitter and going, well, does this mean Bruno Fernandes is being sold? Is this a Bruno Fernandes backup? Is this an expectation that he will play deep alongside Casemiro? I don't think any of that is the case. I think if Mason Mount is signed, he will be used again as that modern advanced 8. We've seen players like Gundogan doing it for Manchester City, Xhaka and Odegaard doing it for Arsenal. That's the sort of role I think Mason Mount would be playing in these areas here. Whether it be the right hand side or the left hand side, I'm not too sure. I think he does a different job from both sides. But I think from both sides you're getting creativity, you're getting goals, you're getting technical security on the ball, and you're getting a really hard-working player who, has performed at the highest level for several seasons. Apart from this year where he's had a blip, he's been really good. And I mean, Marcus Rashford on the left-hand side is the prime example of why we shouldn't write a player off after one bad season in a horrible system. We've seen the second that Rashford has been put in a better system and he's more confident, he's performed again. So there is certainly the potential for Mason Mount to sort of return to these numbers. But to kind of summarise, do I think it's the right signing? It's not what I would be going for. Personally, I want that deeper phase player. That first phase player who's press resistant and, dictates games. Is Mason Mount that? No. But like I've said already, this might just be Ten Hag taking the team in a different direction to what we were expecting. If he wants the team in this direction, then I completely understand why he would want Mason Mount. I really do see it, and I see what he would bring to the team. So it's important that we don't just write this off. We need to be open-minded about this transfer. Do I think it's perfect? No. Do I think it's worth 50 million? No. But at the same time, do I get the idea behind it? Yes. So that's kind of my thoughts. Hopefully you guys now have a clearer understanding. If we get closer to a move happening, I will kind of take a deeper dive on his strengths and weaknesses. But I just wanted to clear up some of the confusion amongst the fan base. So this has been a different sort of video to what we normally do in this particular series. But hopefully you guys now have a clearer understanding, and now you can make more of a judgment. So let me know, should Manchester United sign Mason Mount? Let me know in the comments down below. Apart from that, thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this slightly different video, and as always, I will see you in the next one.